If you think you could terminate an employee for any reason, think again. Wrongful termination lawsuits are a growing concern for many businesses, as one mistake could cost you big time. So today we'll be breaking down what employers need to know about this topic, and I'm joined by Bryn Goodman, a partner in the Labor and Employment Department at Fox Rothschild, which is a national full-service law firm. We'll cover the biggest legal pitfalls, the right way to terminate an employee, and what to do if you ever find yourself facing a wrongful termination claim. Hi, Bryn. Thank you so much for being here today to talk about wrongful termination. Now, I know that most states have some form of at-will employment, and this doesn't apply to labor unions and things like that, but for those employees it does apply to, at-will employment essentially just means that the employer or employee can terminate the employment agreement at any time for any reason, as long as that reason is not unlawful. So, what are some of the most common unlawful reasons for termination that employers should know about?
Some unlawful reasons would be retaliation or discrimination, and this often comes up in the context where someone has raised an issue related to protected activity. For instance, someone complained that there was discrimination, or they participated in an investigation, or if someone has just taken leave, someone's returned from family medical leave, or someone was returned from disability leave, or requested, for instance, an accommodation. All of those situations, if you're planning to terminate that employee, you definitely want to have a very good, legitimate, non-discriminatory and non-retaliatory reason for that termination. And so you want to be mindful of that.
So if an employer does want to terminate an employee, what sort of steps should they take to ensure that they are legally compliant with that termination?
So because employees are at will and an employer can make a business decision to terminate someone, I often get a phone call that says, this is my employee, they're not performing well, I want to terminate them. I can do that, right? Of course, you are a business owner or an employer or a manager, you can terminate someone for poor performance, but you do want to take a look at who else has that job. Is this person the only person in a protected category? Has this person recently made a complaint? Has this person recently returned from a leave? Those things are going to be sort of red flags for selecting them for termination. Doesn't mean that you can't terminate them, but what it means is that you do want to look at, do I have documentation to support that poor performance, if that's my reason? If my reason for terminating is the business is not doing well, you're looking then at everyone in that job position, right? So in those categories of employees, for instance, if it's a sales company and you want to look at all your sales employees, you need to be able to explain why you're selecting that sales employee. So you want to look at their particular performance and whether that's an outlier. And you also want to look at, whether the poor performance is related to a disability that was just disclosed or a leave that just occurred. You also want to look at whether we told them about the poor performance. And again, you don't have to coach anyone or tell anyone about poor performance, but you want to look at what are my risks if I have 10 sales employees and I only want to terminate the one who just recently complained or participated in an investigation. I need to have a very solid reason why I'm selecting them, and the reason can't be that they just complained. And so you want to make sure that you're thoughtful about what you're doing and the documentation you have to support that. And you do want to look at, why this person was selected if it's a reduction in force. Oftentimes we recommend that a disparate impact analysis be done. So if you're doing a group reduction in force, there are certain steps you take to make sure that you're not eliminating everyone over the age of 40, for instance, which would also be an unlawful termination.
Interesting. I feel like you brought up a lot of points that employers might not initially think about. Obviously, in an ideal world, employers would be thoughtful in these terminations, have proper documentation, all of those things that you had listed. But if an employer does find themselves facing a wrongful termination complaint, what is the first step that they should take there?
You'd want to preserve any documentation, and sometimes there's support for a termination that you might not expect. For instance, you may have messaged someone about the reason for the termination, not told the employee, but messaged someone else prior to the employee making a complaint or raising an issue. And so that would be really pertinent evidence to support a defense. You also might have automatic deletion of certain documents, and so you want to stop that automatic deletion. and you want to report it to an insurance carrier if you have insurance to make sure that you don't waive your ability to have coverage over any claim. And then you also want to evaluate whether there's a business reason to resolve the matter quickly and efficiently, maybe because you don't want to spend time and resources on a defense, or whether there is significant risk and you want to resolve because this is a potential claim that could have, real liability for the company, in which case you might want to enter into a settlement earlier.
Great. I feel like that is all very actionable advice. So thank you for that. But before we sign off today, what is your number one piece of advice that you would give to employers to avoid or mitigate wrongful termination claims?
Always take a beat. Always take a breather before you terminate someone, unless it is a situation where someone has engaged in violence in the workplace or done something that is so egregious and awful. In those instances, you should terminate immediately because it's an obvious misconduct issue. If you're dealing with a performance issue related to someone's actual work product, you want to think about whether or not you have appropriate documentation, and you do want to talk thoughtfully about whether or not this could trigger an unlawful termination claim related to discrimination or retaliation. So you really do want to pause and think, especially when you're terminating for performance, and also when you're terminating based on a reduction in force. You want to think about the group of employees you're going to look at for termination, and then why you're selecting each person in that group. So the only reason you would just terminate immediately would really be an egregious misconduct issue.
Great advice. Well, thank you so much, Bryn, for being here today and sharing all of your valuable insights. And to you guys watching at home or at work or wherever you may be, I hope you found something valuable in this video. If you did, be sure to give us a like and subscribe for more business insights. We're always putting out new content. Thanks for watching.